Part 6. Liam returned to the resistance camp just as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. His body ached from hours of crawling, crouching, and moving silently through the ruins, but he pushed the fatigue aside. The information he had gathered was too important to waste time resting. He needed to share it with Captain Rachel Dawson and the others immediately, as he approached the makeshift headquarters, a cluster of tents surrounded by reinforced barricades. He spotted Emma kneeling beside a wounded soldier, her hand steady as she cleaned a gash on the man's arm. She glanced up when she heard his footsteps and broke into a relieved smile. "You're back," she said, rising to her feet. "We were starting to worry." "I'm fine," Liam replied, brushing off her concern. "Where's Rachel?" "In the command tent," Emma answered, gesturing toward the largest structure in the camp. "She's been waiting for your report." Without another word, Liam headed toward the tent. Inside, Rachel sat at a rickety table covered with maps, notes, and scattered pieces of equipment. Her brow was furrowed in concentration as she studied a blueprint of the Zyran base, one they had pieced together from earlier drone footage. When Liam entered, she looked up sharply. "Well?" she asked, her voice tinged with impatience. "What did you find?" Liam pulled out a small notepad from his pack and began recounting everything he had seen. He described the layout of the alien base, the patrol patterns of the soldiers, and the blind spots in their defenses. Then, he mentioned the dome-shaped building Kale had entered, the one that seemed to hold some kind of significance. "It's got to be important," Liam concluded. Kale went inside himself, along with his top officers. "Whatever there?" "Planning, it's happening there." Rachel leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Do you think it's their command center? Or maybe a weapons facility?" "This could be either," Liam admitted. "But I couldn't get close enough to tell. The place is heavily guarded." Rachel tapped a finger against the table, deep in thought. "If we could take out that building or even disrupt whatever's going on inside, might throw them off balance, but getting in won't be easy." "No kidding," Liam muttered. "Their security is tight. One wrong move, and they'll spot us." Emma stepped into the tent just then, carrying a tray of food. "Here," she said, setting it down in front of Liam. "You look like you haven't eaten all day." "Thanks," Liam said, grabbing a piece of bread and tearing into it hungrily. As he ate, Rachel began sketching a rough plan on the map spread across the table. "We'll need a distraction," she said, tracing lines with her pen, "something big enough to draw their attention away from the dome. That'll give us a chance to slip in unnoticed." "What kind of distraction?" Emma asked, frowning. "We don't exactly have the resources to stage a full-scale attack." "We don't need to," Rachel replied. "Just something loud and flashy enough to make them think we're hitting them hard. A few explosives rigged near the perimeter should do the trick." Liam nodded slowly, chewing thoughtfully. "It could work. If we time it right, we might be able to sneak past their patrols." "Exactly," Rachel said, her tone firm. "But this isn't just about sneaking in. We need to know what we're dealing with once we're inside. That means gathering intel and being ready to act on it." The three of them spent the next hour refining the plan, discussing every detail and contingency. By the time they finished, the moon had risen high in the sky, casting long shadows over the camp. Exhaustion tugged at Liam's eyelids, but he forced himself to stay alert. There was no room for mistakes, not now. The following night, the resistance team moved into position under the cover of darkness. Liam led a small group tasked with infiltrating the Zyran base, while another squad prepared the explosives for the diversion. Chris, the wiry soldier who had questioned the reconnaissance mission earlier, volunteered to oversee the detonation. Though skeptical of the plan, he had proven himself reliable in previous operations. As the infiltration team approached the alien encampment, Ames signaled for everyone to stop. They crouched behind a pile of rubble, watching as the Zyran patrols marched past in perfect formation. Their glowing eyes scanned the area methodically, leaving little room for error. Liam held his breath, waiting for the right moment to move. When the coast was clear, he motioned for the others to follow him. They darted forward in short bursts, using every scrap of cover available to avoid detection. Each step felt like walking a tightrope. One misstep, and they'd fall into disaster. Liam's heart pounded in his chest, but he kept his focus sharp, trusting his instincts to guide him. Meanwhile, at the designated location, Chris and his team set up the explosives. They worked quickly and quietly, attaching charges to several key points along the perimeter fence. Once everything was in place, Chris activated the timer and retreated to a safe distance. Within minutes, a series of deafening explosions rocked the base, sending shockwaves through the air. The distraction worked perfectly. Zyran soldiers scrambled toward the source of the blasts, shouting orders and deploying drones to investigate. In the chaos, Liam and his team slipped past the distracted guards and made their way toward the dome-shaped building. Getting inside proved more challenging than expected. The entrance was sealed with a heavy metal door, its surface smooth and unmarked. Liam examined it closely, searching for any kind of control panel or access point. Finally, he spotted a faint seam running along the edge of the door, a potential weak spot. "Stand back," he whispered to the others, pulling out a small device from his pack. It was a portable hacking tool Emma had modified specifically. For this mission, with trembling fingers, Liam attached the device to the seam and activated it. The tool emitted a soft hum as it interfaced with the alien technology, bypassing the security protocols. After what felt like an eternity, the door hissed open, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond. Liam exchanged a glance with the others before stepping inside, his rifle raised and ready. The interior of the dome was eerily quiet, the only sound the faint hum of machinery in the background. They moved cautiously, checking each room they passed for signs of activity. Finally, they reached a large chamber at the center of the building. Inside, rows of consoles lined the walls, displaying streams of data in alien script. End of the room stood a massive holographic projection, a detailed map of Earth, dotted with glowing markers indicating strategic locations. Liam's stomach sank as he realized what he was looking at. Invasion plans. "They're mapping our cities," he murmured, his voice barely audible, planning their next moves. Before anyone could respond, a sudden noise echoed through the chamber, the sound of boots approaching rapidly. Liam cursed under his breath and signaled for the others to hide. Moments later, a group of Zyran soldiers entered the room, their weapons drawn. They hadn't spotted the intruders yet, but it was only a matter of time. Thinking quickly, Liam grabbed a loose piece of equipment from a nearby console and hurled it toward the opposite side of the room. The clatter drew the soldiers' attention, giving the humans a chance to slip away unnoticed. As the Zyrans investigated the source of the noise, Liam and his team crept back toward the exit. Their hearts racing, by the time they reached the rendezvous point outside the base, the rest of the resistance was already waiting. Chris greeted them with a grin, clearly pleased with how well the diversion had gone. "Nice work," he said, slapping Liam on the back. "I take it you found something useful?" Liam nodded grimly. "Yeah, something big. We've got to warn the others fast." As they regrouped and headed back to camp, Liam couldn't shake the weight of what he'd discovered. Zyrans weren't just planning another attack, they were preparing for a full-scale invasion. Humanity's chances of survival were slim, but Liam refused to give up hope. They had beaten Kale once before, and they could do it again. All they needed was a plan and the courage to see it through. Part 5. The days that followed the duel passed in a blur of activity. The human resistance worked tirelessly to fortify their position, knowing full well that Kale's withdrawal was only temporary. Every hour spent preparing could mean the difference between survival and defeat when the Zyrans returned. Captain Rachel Dawson led the efforts with relentless determination, sharp commands cutting through the air as the group scrambled to reinforce barricades, stockpile supplies, and repair damaged equipment. Liam threw himself into the work alongside everyone else, though his mind often wandered back to the duel. He replayed every moment in his head, the way Kale moved, the subtle shifts in his stance, the flicker of doubt in his eyes when Liam had used the environment to his advantage. There was something about the alien commander that intrigued him, something beyond his size and strength. Kale wasn't just a warrior, he was a strategist, someone who thrived on dominance and control. Understanding that mindset might be key to defeating him in the future, Emma noticed Liam's preoccupation and approached him one afternoon while he was helping to stack crates of ammunition. "You've been quiet lately," she said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Everything okay?" Liam glanced at her and forced a smile. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking about Cale." Emma guessed, her tone gentle. He nodded. "Yeah, about him and what he'll do next. He's not going to let this go, not after how things ended." Emma sighed, leaning against the wall beside him. "You're probably right. She can't. Keep dwelling on it, Liam. You did your part, and now we're all doing ours. Whatever comes next, we'll handle it together." Her words were meant to reassure him, but Liam couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Wouldn't wait forever. Sooner or later, the alien commander would return, and when he did, the stakes would be higher than ever. That evening, Rachel called another meeting. The group gathered around the same makeshift fire they'd used before, its warm glow providing a small measure of comfort against the growing chill of uncertainty. Rachel stood near the flames, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her expression was grim, but there was a spark of resolve in her eyes. "We need to talk about reconnaissance," she began, her voice carrying a note of urgency. "We can't afford to sit here blindly waiting for Cale to make the first move. We need to know what he's planning, where his forces are stationed, and how many reinforcements he's brought in." One of the soldiers, a wiry man named Chris, raised his hand hesitantly. "How do you suggest we do that? Sneak into their base? They'll spot us before we even get close?" Rachel shook her head. "Not necessarily. We've got drones, small ones, designed for scouting missions. If we send them out carefully, we might be able to gather some intel without tipping them off." "And if they catch one of the drones," Chris pressed, "won't that just give them more reason to attack us sooner?" "It's a risk we have to take," Rachel replied firmly. "Sitting here guessing isn't an option. We need information, and this is the best way to get it." Liam listened intently, his mind racing. Sending drones was a good start, but it wouldn't be enough. Cale was too smart, too experienced, to leave his operations exposed. They needed someone on the ground, someone who could blend in, observe unnoticed, and report back without raising suspicion. Someone small, agile, and quick-thinking. "I'll go," Liam said suddenly. Breaking the silence, everyone turned to look at him, surprise written across their faces. Rachel frowned, stepping closer. "What did you just say?" "I'll go," Liam repeated, his voice steady, despite the weight of the decision. "I'll scout their base. Can move quietly, stay out of sight. If anyone can get close enough to see what they're up to, it's me." "No," Rachel said immediately, shaking her head. "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. We barely survived the last fight, and you're suggesting walking straight into their territory? That's suicide." "It's not suicide," Liam countered. "It's calculated. Said yourself, we need intel, and this is the fastest way to get it. Besides, I've already faced Cale once. I know how he thinks, or at least, I'm starting to. I can use that to my advantage." Rachel opened her mouth to argue, but Emma spoke up before she could. "He's right," she said softly, drawing everyone's attention. "As much as I hate to admit it, Liam's our best shot at getting the information we need. And if we don't act soon, we'll lose whatever edge we gained from the duel." The group fell silent, weighing the risks and benefits of Liam's proposal. Finally, Rachel let out a frustrated sigh. "Fine," she said reluctantly. But you're not going alone. I'll send a small team with you just in case." Liam shook his head. "No, a team will slow me down and make it easier for them to spot us. This has to be a solo mission." Rachel glared at him, clearly torn between her duty as a leader and her concern for his safety. After a long pause, she finally relented. "Fine, but you follow my rules, understood? Stick to the shadows, avoid direct confrontation, and pull out the second you're compromised. No heroics." "Got it," Liam said, nodding. "I'll be careful." The next morning, Liam set out before dawn, armed with nothing but a small pack of supplies, a pair of binoculars, and his rifle. The journey to the Zyran base took several hours, during which he moved cautiously through the ruins, avoiding open areas and sticking to cover whenever possible. By the time he reached the outskirts of the alien encampment, the sun was high in the sky, casting harsh light over the landscape. From his vantage point behind a crumbling wall, Liam surveyed the scene before him. Sleek metallic structures towering above the surrounding terrain. Dozens of alien soldiers patrolled the perimeter, their glowing eyes scanning for any sign of intruders. Drones buzzed overhead, their sensors sweeping the area methodically. It was a fortress. Impenetrable at first glance, but Liam knew better than to judge by appearances. He waited patiently, observing the patrols and mapping out their patterns. Over the course of several hours, he identified weak points in there. Defenses' blind spots where the drones didn't linger, gaps between patrols that left brief windows of opportunity. Slowly, carefully, he began to inch closer, using debris and shadows to mask his movements as he crept nearer to the heart of the base. Liam spotted something unexpected. Kale himself, standing atop a raised platform and addressing a group of his soldiers. The alien commander's voice carried across the compound, deep and commanding, though Liam couldn't understand the language. Whatever Kale was saying, it seemed to inspire his troops. They responded with cheers and roars of approval. Liam watched closely, noting the way Kale carried himself. There was no trace of the hesitation or frustration he'd shown during the duel. Instead, Kale radiated confidence, his posture tall and proud. It was clear he had regained control of the situation, rallying his forces for whatever came next. But then, something strange happened. As the speech concluded, Kale turned and gestured toward a nearby structure, a large dome-shaped building that Liam hadn't noticed before. The alien commander entered the building, followed by several of his highest-ranking officers. Intrigued, Liam made a mental note of the location. Whatever was inside that dome, it was important. Just as he was considering how to get closer, a sudden noise startled him, an alien patrol rounding a corner nearby. Liam froze, pressing himself flat against the ground as the soldiers passed within inches of his hiding spot. His heart pounded in his chest, but he remained perfectly still, holding his breath until the danger had passed. Once the coast was clear, Liam slipped away, retracing his steps back toward the resistance camp. He had seen enough for now. Intel he'd gathered would give them a crucial advantage, allowing them to plan their next move with greater precision. As he disappeared into the ruins, Liam allowed himself a small smile. Kale may have thought he had the upper hand, but humanity wasn't done fighting yet, not by a long shot. Part 4 of the victory celebration was short-lived. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting long shadows over the battlefield, the humans quickly turned their attention to the aftermath of the duel. The ruined industrial complex was a mess of shattered concrete, twisted metal, and scattered debris. Though they had won a temporary reprieve from the Zyrans, the cost of the fight was evident in the damage around the man and Liam's battered body. Emma Lewis knelt beside him, her hands moving deftly as she examined his injuries. "You're lucky," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Nothing broken, but you've got some nasty bruises, and that cut on your forehead needs cleaning. Sit still for a minute." Liam winced as she dabbed at the wound with an antiseptic cloth, but he didn't complain. He leaned back against a chunk of rubble, letting out a slow breath. His ribs ached with every movement, and his muscles felt like lead, but he knew he'd been fortunate. Kale could have killed him if he'd wanted to. Instead, the alien commander had called off the fight, a decision that puzzled Liam more than anything else. Rachel Dawson paced nearby, her boots crunching against the gravel. She glanced at Liam occasionally, her expression a mix of pride and concern. "You did good out there," she said finally, stopping in front of him. "But don't think this is over. Kale's not the kind to give up easily. He'll be back. And next time, we might not get so lucky." "I know," Liam replied, his voice quiet but steady. "But for now, we've bought ourselves some time. That's something, right?" Rachel nodded reluctantly. "That's something. But we can't afford to sit around waiting for him to return. We need to prepare for whatever comes next." While the others began organizing cleanup efforts and fortifying their position, Liam found himself lost in thought. The duel had shown him that Kale wasn't invincible, but it had also revealed how dangerous the alien commander truly was. Every punch, every strike, had carried enough force to shatter bone. If Liam hadn't relied on speed and strategy, he wouldn't have lasted more than a few seconds. And yet, there had been moments during the fight when Kale seemed almost hesitant. Not afraid exactly, but uncertain. It was as if the alien had been surprised by Liam's resilience, or perhaps by humanity's determination as a whole. As the day wore on, the Resistance worked tirelessly to repair what they could of the damaged area. Emma stayed close to Liam, keeping an eye on his condition while tending to other wounded soldiers. Despite her calm demeanor, Liam could tell she was worried not just about him, but about everyone. The duel had reminded them all how fragile their situation really was. One misstep, one mistake, and everything could fall apart. That evening, as the group gathered around a makeshift fire to share a meal, Rachel called for a meeting. They sat in a loose circle, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. The mood was somber, despite the earlier victory. No one spoke for a moment, each person lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Rachel broke the silence. "We need to talk about what happens next," she said, her voice carrying a note of urgency. "Kale may have pulled his forces back, but that doesn't mean he's given up. He's regrouping, planning his next move, and when he comes back, he'll come harder." Liam nodded, his gaze fixed on the fire. "He underestimated us before. He won't make that mistake again." "Exactly," Rachel agreed. "Which means we need to be smarter, faster, and better prepared. We can't rely on luck or improvisation this time. We need a real plan." One of the soldiers, a tall man named Daniel, raised his hand hesitantly. "What kind of plan? We're outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched. How do we even stand a chance against someone like Kale?" Rachel looked at him squarely. "By using what they don't expect. By fighting dirty if we have to. Kale thinks he knows us now. He thinks he understands our weaknesses. But he doesn't know everything. There are still things we can use to our advantage," Emma chimed in, her voice gentle but firm. "Like what? What advantages do we have?" "For starters," Rachel said, gesturing toward Liam. "We've got people like him, people who can adapt, who can think on their feet. And we've got terrain knowledge. These ruins, these cities, they're ours. We know them better than the Zyrans ever will. It gives us an edge." Daniel frowned, unconvinced. "An edge isn't enough. Even with all that, we're still dealing with aliens who are bigger, stronger, and more advanced than us. What happens when they bring out their big guns?" Rachel hesitated, then sighed. "Then we fight smarter. We hit them where it hurts, disrupt their supply lines, sabotage their equipment, anything to keep them off balance. It's not going to be easy, but it's our best shot." The group fell silent again, absorbing her words. Liam stared into the fire, his mind racing. He knew Rachel was right. They couldn't hope to match the Zyrans head-on. Their only hope was to exploit every weakness, every blind spot, and turn the tide in their favor. But it wouldn't be enough to rely solely on physical tactics. They needed to understand their enemy, to anticipate their moves and counter them effectively. Later that night, after most of the group had gone to rest, Liam found himself unable to sleep. He wandered through the ruins, his footsteps muffled by the soft dirt and broken concrete. The moon hung low in the sky, its pale light washing over the landscape. Everything seemed eerily quiet, as though the world itself was holding its breath. He stopped near the spot where the crane had collapsed. During the duel, the wreckage was still there, a jagged reminder of the battle. As he stood there, staring at the twisted metal, he realized something important. Kale wasn't just a brute. He was intelligent, calculating, and deeply proud. Those traits made him dangerous, but they also made him predictable, at least to a degree. Pride, especially, could be a powerful weapon if used correctly. A rustling sound behind him snapped Liam out of his thoughts. He turned quickly, his hand instinctively reaching for the knife strapped to his belt. But it was only Emma, her medical kit slung over her shoulder. She held up her hands in a gesture of peace, smiling faintly. "Sorry," she said, lowering. "Her arms didn't mean to startle you. I saw you walking and figured I'd check on you." Liam relaxed slightly, letting his hand drop. "It's okay. I'm fine." "You don't look fine," Emma countered, stepping closer. "You've got that look like you're trying to solve a puzzle in your head?" Liam chuckled softly, shaking his head. Maybe I am. Just thinking about Cale. About how we beat him once, but we'll probably have to do it again soon." Emma nodded, her expression thoughtful. "And you're wondering how we'll pull it off?" "Yeah," Liam admitted. "Smart, Emma. Stronger than anyone I've ever faced. Beating him isn't going to be easy." "No, it's not," she agreed. "But you're smarter too. You proved that today. You're not alone. We've got a whole team backing you up. Whatever happens next, we'll figure it out together." Her words brought a small measure of comfort, though Liam knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Still, he appreciated her optimism. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to survive this. As they walked back toward the camp, Liam glanced up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Cale was planning his next move. The alien commander wouldn't forget what had happened here today, and he certainly wouldn't forgive it. But Liam wasn't afraid. Fear wouldn't help him now. All he could do was prepare. Stay sharp and trust in the strength of those around him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers. Till then, all he could do was rest and hope for the best. Part 3. The first rays of sunlight pierced through the thick clouds, casting a pale glow over the desolate battlefield. It was dawn, and the air was heavy with anticipation. The humans had chosen an abandoned industrial complex as the site, for the dual maze of crumbling walls, rusted machinery, and jagged debris that offered plenty of cover and opportunities for strategy. Captain Rachel Dawson had insisted on it, knowing Liam's agility and quick thinking would give him an edge in such an environment. Liam stood at the edge of the ruins, his rifle slung across his back and his fists clenched tightly. He took slow, deep breaths, trying to steady his nerves. Despite his calm exterior, his mind raced with possibilities. What tricks would Cale use? How fast could the alien move? Would his size and strength overwhelm Liam before he could adapt? These questions swirled in his head, but he pushed them aside. Overthinking wouldn't help now. All he could do was trust his instincts and stay one step ahead. Behind him, the human resistance gathered quietly, their faces etched with worry and hope. Emma Lewis adjusted her medical kit, ensuring she had everything she might need if things went wrong. She glanced at Liam occasionally, offering silent encouragement whenever their eyes met. Rachel paced nearby, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She wanted to say something, anything to reassure him, but words felt futile. Instead, she settled for giving him a firm nod when he looked her way. It was enough. On the opposite side of the battlefield, Cale emerged from his ship, flanked by several of his soldiers. His armor gleamed in the morning light, and his expression was unreadable beneath the visor of his helmet. He moved with deliberate confidence, each step radiating power and authority. To anyone watching, he seemed invincibly an unstoppable force of nature. But inside, Cale was less certain. The memory of Liam's earlier victories lingered in his mind, gnawing at his pride. He couldn't afford another failure, not here, not now. As the two opponents approached each other, the tension between them was palpable. They stopped within speaking distance, their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Cale broke the silence. "Are you ready to face me, Runt?" he asked, his voice laced with mockery. "Or have you realized how foolish this is?" Liam didn't rise to the bait. "Let's just get this over with," he replied evenly, his tone devoid of emotion. Cale smirked, though there was no humor in it. "Very well. No weapons. Just skill against skill. If you somehow manage to best me, my forces will withdraw. But if I win," he paused, letting the threat hang in the air, "your planet surrenders." Rachel stepped forward, her voice sharp. "And we'll hold you to that. No tricks, no reinforcements, just you and him." Cale inclined his head slightly, acknowledging her demand. "Agreed. Now let us begin. With that, both sides retreated to a safe distance, leaving Liam and Cale alone in the center of the battlefield. The wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of dust and decay. Liam shifted into a defensive stance, his muscles coiled like springs, ready to react at a moment's notice. Across from him, Cale cracked his knuckles, the sound echoing ominously. In the stillness then, without warning, Cale charged. He moved faster than Liam had anticipated, his massive frame barreling forward with terrifying speed. Instinctively, Liam dove to the side, narrowly avoiding a crushing blow aimed at his head. The impact sent shockwaves through the ground, cracking the pavement beneath Cale's fist. Dust billowed into the air, obscuring Liam's vision momentarily. But he didn't panic. He rolled to his feet and darted behind a pile of rubble, using it as cover. Cale roared in frustration, slamming his fists into the debris. The concrete shattered instantly, sending chunks flying in all directions. Liam ducked and weaved, staying just out of reach. He knew better than to engage Cale directly. The alien's sheer size and strength made close combat a losing proposition. Instead, he relied on his speed and knowledge of the terrain to keep moving, always staying one step ahead. From the sidelines, the humans watched anxiously. Emma gripped the strap of her medical kit tightly, her knuckles white. Rachel clenched her jaw, her sharp eyes tracking every movement. Even the Zyrans seemed captivated by the spectacle, their earlier arrogance replaced by cautious curiosity. Cale wasn't used to being evaded. His usual opponents either stood their ground or fled. Entirely neither approach worked against someone like Liam. Every time he swung, the human slipped away, darting between obstacles with ease. It was infuriating, and Cale's temper began to fray. With a roar, he unleashed a flurry of attacks, smashing through walls and overturning machinery in his pursuit. Liam seized the opportunity, as Cale destroyed yet another section of the ruins. Liam spotted a loose metal beam lying among the wreckage. Without hesitation, he grabbed it. Testing its weight briefly before spinning around and hurling it toward Cale, the makeshift projectile struck the alien commander square in the chest, staggering him. For a brief moment, Cale faltered, his balance disrupted. Seeing his chance, Liam closed the distance and delivered a swift kick to Cale's knee joint. The blow landed with surprising force, causing Cale to stumble backward. Pain flared in his leg, and for the first time, doubt flickered across his face. How was this tiny human managing to hurt him? Cale wasn't done yet. Enraged, he recovered quickly and retaliated with a sweeping punch that caught Liam off guard. The impact sent Liam sprawling to the ground, knocking the wind out of him. Pain shot through his ribs as he struggled to breathe, but he forced himself to roll away before Cale could follow up with another attack. Emma gasped audibly from the sidelines, her hand flying to her mouth. "Come on, Liam," she whispered under her breath, willing him to get back on his feet. Liam gritted his teeth and pushed himself up, ignoring the throbbing ache in his side. He couldn't afford to slow down, not now. Cale advanced again, his movements slower but no less dangerous. Blood trickled from a cut on Liam's forehead, blurring his vision slightly. But he blinked it away and focused on the task at hand. Rachel shouted encouragement from the sidelines. "You've got this, Liam. Use the environment," her words sparked an idea. Liam scanned the area quickly, noting the positions of nearby structures and hazards. He spotted a tall crane looming in the distance, its arm extending precariously over the battlefield. If he could lure Cale underneath it. Renewed determination, Liam sprinted toward the crane, zigzagging to avoid Cale's strikes. The alien commander gave chase, his anger fueling his movements. When Liam reached the base of the crane, he climbed onto a low platform and waited. Cale followed, his massive form shaking the structure with every step. "You can't run forever," Cale snarled, reaching out to grab Liam. At the last second, Liam jumped, grabbing onto a higher beam and pulling himself up. Cale lunged after him, but the old metal groaned under his weight. With a deafening creak, the crane began to collapse. Liam leaped clear just in time, landing safely on solid ground. Behind him, Cale barely managed to escape as the crane's arm crashed down, pinning him partially beneath the wreckage. For a moment, everything went still. The humans held their breath, unsure whether the fight was truly over. Then, slowly, Kale extricated himself from the debris, his armor dented and his body visibly battered. His eyes burned with fury. But there was also a glimmer of respect, a reluctant acknowledgement of Liam's resourcefulness. "This isn't finished," Kale growled, though his voice lacked its earlier bravado. Liam stood tall, breathing hard. "But refusing to back down?" "It doesn't have to be," he said firmly. "We don't want to destroy you. We just want to protect our home." Kale stared at him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded curtly. "So be it. My forces will withdraw for now." With that, he turned and limped back toward his ship, his soldiers trailing silently behind him. As the alien vessel ascended into the sky, the humans erupted into cheers. Emma rushed to Liam's side, checking him for injuries, while Rachel clapped him on the shoulder, pride shining in her eyes. Though the victory was temporary, it proved something important. Humanity wasn't as weak as the Zyrans believed. Sometimes courage and ingenuity could triumph over brute strength. But even as they celebrated, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Part 2. Kale stood frozen for a moment, his sharp eyes narrowing as he processed what had just happened. The smallest human and insignificant speck compared to his towering warriors had taken down 2 of his elite guards with ease. "Wasn't supposed to go this way? My soldiers were trained for combat, their bodies enhanced with advanced technology. And yet they lay defeated at the feet of someone who barely reached their chests." Kale's pride stung, but more than that, his curiosity was piqued. How had this tiny human managed to outmaneuver his finest fighters? Liam straightened up, brushing dirt off his uniform as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. He didn't gloat or celebrate. Instead, he simply returned to his position beside Captain Rachel Dawson. The other humans cheered quietly, patting him on the back and exchanging proud glances. But Liam's focus never wavered. He kept his gaze locked on Kale, waiting for whatever came next. Rachel leaned in close to Liam, her voice low but urgent. "You did well," she said, though there was no trace of relief in her tone. "But don't let your guard down. This isn't over." Liam nodded, his expression calm but alert. "I know. He's not done testing us." Kale, meanwhile, paced back and forth, his clawed hands flexing in frustration. He couldn't ignore the murmurs among his own ranks. His soldiers were whispering to each other, their confidence shaken by what they'd witnessed. A commander like Kale, whose reputation was built on dominance and superiority, this was unacceptable. He needed to regain control not just of the situation, but of his own emotions. Finally, he stopped pacing and turned to face the humans again. "Impressive," he admitted grudgingly, though the word tasted bitter in his mouth. "For a primitive creature, you move quickly. But tell me, Runt, is it speed alone that makes you so effective? Or is there something else?" Liam didn't answer. He knew better than to engage in verbal sparring with someone trying to provoke him. Instead, he tightened his grip on his rifle and waited. Around him, the tension grew thicker, almost suffocating. Even the air seemed heavier, charged with anticipation. Kale studied Liam intently, his mind racing. There was something unusual about this human, something he couldn't quite place. Most beings would have been trembling with fear by now, intimidated by the sheer size and power of the Zyrans. Yet Liam showed no signs of hesitation. His movements were deliberate, his posture relaxed but ready. It was as if he carried an invisible armor, forged not from metal but from sheer willpower, deciding he needed answers. Kale activated a small device attached to his wrist, a portable scanning tool capable of analyzing biological data. A faint blue light emitted from the device as it scanned Liam's body, collecting information about his physical condition, genetic makeup, and neural activity. Within seconds, the results appeared on a holographic display hovering above Kale's forearm. He saw surprised him. According to the scan, Liam wasn't genetically modified or augmented in any way. His strength and agility weren't the result of technological enhancements or experimental treatments. They were natural products of rigorous training, discipline, and adaptability. Kale frowned, scrolling through the data again to confirm its accuracy. It made no sense. How could a being without enhancements perform at such a high level? "Fascinating," Kale muttered under his breath. Then, louder, he said, "So you're not enhanced? No cybernetics, no genetic engineering. Just raw skill. An instinct." He tilted his head, studying Liam with renewed interest. "Tell me, Runt, how does a species as weak as yours produce someone like you?" This time Liam responded not with words, but with action. Before anyone could react, he sprinted forward, closing the distance between himself and Kale in mere seconds. The alien commander raised an arm instinctively, expecting an attack, but Liam stopped just short of him. With fluid precision, Liam sidestepped, grabbed a loose piece of debris from the ground, and hurled it toward one of the remaining drones hovering nearby. The projectile struck true, disabling the machine in an instant. The humans erupted into cheers once again, while the Zirans exchanged uneasy glances. Kale gritted his teeth, his irritation mounting. This human was proving to be far more resourceful and far more dangerous than he'd anticipated. "You think throwing rocks will save your planet?" Kale snapped, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're clever, I'll give you that. But cleverness won't win a war." Rachel stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "Maybe not, but it's enough to keep you guessing, isn't it?" Kale glared at her, his patience wearing thin. He hated being challenged, especially by beings he considered inferior. Still, he couldn't deny the truth in her words. These humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability was a weapon in itself. If he underestimated the Maven for a moment, it could cost him dearly. Determined to assert his dominance, Kale issued a new challenge. "Enough games," he declared, his voice booming across the battlefield. "If you're so confident in your abilities, Runt, then prove it. Face me in single combat. If you win, my forces will withdraw for now. But if I win," he paused, letting the implication hang in the air, "your planet surrenders. Unconditionally." A hush fell over the assembled crowd. The humans exchanged worried glances, unsure whether to accept such a risky proposition. Even Rachel hesitated, her brow furrowing as she weighed the consequences. One wrong move, and Earth could fall into alien hands forever. But Liam didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, meeting Kale's gaze with unwavering resolve. "I accept," he said simply, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Kale smirked, clearly pleased with the response. "Very well, we'll settle this. Tomorrow, at dawn. Choose your battleground wisely, humans. You'll need every advantage you can get." With that, the alien commander turned and strode back toward his ship, his armored boots clanging against the pavement. His soldiers followed closely behind, their expressions a mix of admiration and unease. As the massive vessel lifted off the ground and disappeared into the sky, the humans let out a collective sigh of relief. Rachel approached Liam, her expression a mixture of pride and concern. "You sure about this?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. "He's bigger, stronger, and faster than anything we've faced before. Are you ready for that?" Liam nodded, his jaw set with determination. "I didn't ask for this fight, but I'm not backing down. If I can show him and the rest of them that we're not as weak as they think, maybe it'll buy us some time. Maybe it'll even make them reconsider attacking us altogether." Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder, squeezing gently. "Just promise me one thing. Don't try to take him head on. Use what you're good at: speed, strategy, and thinking outside the box. Brute force won't work against someone like Kale." "I know," Liam replied. "Trust me, I'm not planning to trade punches with him. I'll figure something out." As the group dispersed, returning to their makeshift base to prepare for the upcoming duel, Emma Lewis, the unit's medic, approached Liam. She carried a medical kit in one hand, and a datapad in the other, her blonde hair tied back in a practical ponytail. Though she rarely joined the front lines, her role was just as crucial as anyone else's. Her knowledge of first aid and field medicine had saved countless lives during the war. "You okay?" she asked, her green eyes filled with concern. "That was pretty intense back there." Liam smiled faintly, appreciating her support. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just processing everything, I guess." Emma nodded, understanding. "Well, if you need anything, advice, supplies, moral support, you know where to find me. And don't worry too much about tomorrow. You've got this." Her words brought a small measure of comfort, though Liam knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. As he walked back to his quarters, his mind raced with thoughts of the duel. He replayed Cale's movements in his head, analyzing every detail, the way the alien commander carried himself. The subtle shifts in his stance, the flicker of doubt in his eyes when Liam had disabled the drone. There had to be a weakness, something he could exploit. He just needed to find it. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, Liam sat alone in a quiet corner of the base. He cleaned his rifle methodically, focusing on the repetitive motions. To clear his mind, nearby Rachel and a few others discussed strategies for the duel, their voices low but animated. Emma tended to the wounded, her gentle hands working tirelessly to patch up those who had been injured earlier. Despite the chaos around him, Idiom felt a strange sense of calm. He knew the odds were stacked against him, but he also knew he couldn't afford to lose. This wasn't just about proving himself to Cale or earning respect from his comrades. It was about protecting the people he cared about, the ones counting on him to hold the line. And if that meant facing down an alien general, twice his size, so be it. Tomorrow would come soon enough. Until then, all he could do was prepare and hope for the best. Part 1. The stars above Earth shimmered like tiny diamonds scattered across a black velvet sky. It was a quiet night, one that promised calm and peace. But the tranquility didn't last long. A low rumble shook the ground, growing louder with each passing second. The people who stepped outside to see what was happening felt their hearts race as they looked up. Massive ships descended from the heavens, their sleek metallic surfaces reflecting the moonlight. They were unlike anything humanity had ever sent an alien, intimidating. An utterly overwhelming Commander Cale stood at the edge of his ship's ramp, gazing down at the world below. He was tall, even by Zyron's standards, with broad shoulders and armor that gleamed faintly in the dim light. His sharp eyes scanned the humans standing before him, their weapons raised but trembling slightly. To Cale, these creatures seemed weak, fragile and insignificant. How could beings so small and frail pose any real threat? He smirked, his lips curling into a sneer. This mission would be easier than he thought. On the ground, the human soldiers braced themselves for whatever came next. Among them was Liam Carter, a young man barely out of his 20s. At 5 feet 4 inches, Liam was shorter than most of his comrades. His uniform hung loosely on his lean frame, and his helmet made him look even smaller. Some of the others teased him good-naturedly about his size, but Liam never let it bother him. He had something none of them could match: speed, precision, and an unshakable determination to protect his planet. Captain Rachel Dawson, the leader of the Resistance. Unit glanced at Liam briefly before turning her attention back to the alien commander. She trusted him, despite his small stature. Over the months they'd fought side by side, Liam had proven himself time and again. Still, she couldn't help but feel uneasy as Cale stepped forward. There was something cold and calculating in his gaze, something that sent chills down her spine. Cale walked slowly, deliberately, making sure every step echoed loudly against the pavement. He wanted the humans to feel his presence, to know they were facing someone far superior to them. When he stopped just a few feet away, he crossed his arms over his chest and tilted his head, studying the group of soldiers before him. His eyes landed on Liam almost immediately. The contrast between the towering Zyron and the diminutive human was laughable. "Oh well," Cale said, his voice deep and mocking. "Is this all your species has to offer? I expected more." His words carried a hint of amusement, as though he found the entire situation amusing. He pointed a clawed finger directly at Liam. "You there, the runt? Do you really think you can stand against me?" Liam stiffened, but didn't respond. He knew better than to rise to the bait. Instead, he tightened his grip on his rifle and kept his focus steady. Around him, some of the other soldiers shifted uncomfortably, glaring at Cale but saying nothing. They weren't sure how to react. Was this alien trying to provoke them, or was he simply enjoying their discomfort? Cale's smirk widened when Liam remained silent. "No answer? Perhaps you're too scared to speak. That's understandable. After all, you're nothing more than a speck compared to my warriors." He gestured toward the other Zyrans standing behind him, their imposing figures casting long shadows across the ground. Each one was at least 7 feet tall, clad in heavy armor and armed to the teeth. Compared to them, Liam did indeed look like a child playing dress-up. Rachel stepped forward, her voice firm and commanding. "Mock us all you want, but we won't back down. If you've come here looking for a fight, you'll get one." Cale turned his attention to her, his expression darkening slightly. Bold words from such a primitive species. "Tell me, do you truly believe you can win?" He let out a harsh laugh, the sound reverberating through the air. "Your technology is outdated, your tactics predictable, and your bodies frail. You are no match for us." Rachel clenched her jaw, but refused to flinch under his piercing gaze. "We may not have your size or strength, but we have something you lack, Hart, and that's enough." For a moment, Cale seemed taken aback by her defiance. Then he chuckled, shaking his head. "Heart won't save you. Courage means nothing without power." He paused, then added, "But perhaps I'm being unfair. Let's test your resolve, shall we?" Without warning, he snapped his fingers. In one of his drones, a hovering mechanical sphere, equipped with deadly lasers, flew toward the humans. The soldiers scattered, diving for cover as the drone unleashed a barrage of energy blasts. Smoke filled the air, and the sound of explosions drowned out everything else. Amid the chaos, Liam stayed calm. He crouched behind a pile of rubble, watching the drone's movements carefully. Timing was everything. As soon as the machine hovered near him, he popped up, aimed his rifle, and fired a single shot. The bullet struck the drone's core, disabling it instantly. Silence fell as the smoking remains of the drone crashed to the ground. The humans stared in disbelief, while the Zyrans exchanged uneasy glances. Cale's smile faltered for the first time. He hadn't expected the little human to succeed where others might have failed. "Lucky shot," Cale muttered, though there was a hint of doubt in his tone. He waved dismissively. "Fine. Let's see how you fare against something bigger." 2 of Cale's elite guards stepped forward, their massive forms dwarfing everyone else. They moved with menacing grace, their weapons drawn and ready. Humans tensed, knowing this wasn't going to be easy. Rachel signaled for her team to hold their positions. But Liam stepped forward instead. "I'll handle this," he said quietly, his voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through. Rachel hesitated, then nodded. "Be careful." The 2 Zyran guards circled Liam, their glowing eyes locked onto him like predators sizing up their prey. One of them lunged suddenly, swinging a massive fist aimed at Liam's head. But Liam was faster. He ducked, rolled to the side, and delivered a swift kick to the guard's knee joint, causing the alien to stumble. Before the second guard could react, Liam grabbed a discarded piece of metal debris and hurled it like a spear, striking the guard squarely in the chest. The crowd erupted into cheers as the 2 guards collapsed, defeated. Liam stood panting, his chest heaving, but his expression remained calm. He turned to face Cale. Meeting the alien commander's stunned gaze without flinching, Cale's mouth opened and closed several times before he finally managed to speak. "Impossible," he whispered, his voice tinged with disbelief. For the first time since arriving on Earth, he realized he might have underestimated his opponents. And that realization unnerved him more than he cared to admit.